So I have a hot take that a lot of people are probably going to disagree with. And they're going to shake their heads and be like, no, that's crazy, Ezra. How could you say that? But I really feel strongly about it. And maybe I haven't refined it enough. Maybe someone has a different label for it or different words for it. But here we go. I think that the term and the concept of gossip is a tool of the patriarchy being upheld by women against women to keep us from talking to one another. It's great. What? What? Okay, so I remember being raised that gossip was bad. You did not gossip about other women, especially if you were raised in Christian culture, purity culture, evangelical culture, church culture, stuff like that. You did not gossip. It was the worst thing you could do. And if you were talking about an experience or you were talking about someone else or whatever the guise or intention was behind it, you were a gossip. And there was this period, it's still happening, where being called a gossip was like the worst thing you could be. If you were caught doing that, or maybe someone was the recipient of that, you were called a gossip. They're just a gossip. Now, am I saying that speaking about others or speaking about your experiences is always good? Am I saying that speaking about other people is good? No, not necessarily. There's nuance here. And if you know what I'm unpacking, you know what I'm unpacking. And if you don't, then you don't. The term gossip and the concept of gossip specifically was engineered towards women. You didn't ever really hear about a guy being called a gossip or being accused of gossiping, ever. This is specifically engineered towards women and being upheld and distributed by women. We would probably be so shocked, and I'm sure I have so much inner work to do on this topic myself, of how many tools of the patriarchy and of our own oppression that we are upholding ourselves and we're distributing. The systems that we complain about, we're often handing out. Okay. I'm guilty of this. If you live in a female body, you identify as female, you are probably guilty of this at some point because it's really insidious. But my point is the term and the idea of gossiping, the shame surrounding that, stopped us from talking to one another. And what I've found as an adult, even though I'm still young, is that when I have engaged in gossip, aka telling my story, aka being like, hey, can we talk about this? I have found every single time that I have had healing conversations, I have had validating conversations, I have felt more sane, I have felt more seen, I have given those gifts to someone else, and you can feel a difference. There is a felt difference between someone speaking about someone else from a hateful, hurtful place and someone speaking about someone else or their experience because they need to talk about it. And I would take it one step further and say that the structure of calling gossip and telling our stories being damaging and being something you don't do is a mechanism to hide toxicity. I have had so many experiences with people, particularly women, not a hater, just moving in a female body in the world. So that's been my particular experience, where I have waited years to open up about my experience with them, only to find out that I was not the only one who had that experience, only to find out that I was underreacting to what I was experiencing with that person, only to find out that someone else had also experienced it and we could create a bond and healing through having that experience. And that those conversations, or that gossip, if you will, had very little to do with that person. It had to do with our experience and our story. And I'll take it one step further. I don't know why my nose is so itchy. When you make women afraid to speak, by calling it gossip and attaching a shame cycle to it, you silence women communicating with one another. Gossip and talking about our experience and our stories is how we protect one another. It's how we validate one another. It's how we heal one another. And if I have learned anything, for me personally, this doesn't have to be someone else's journey, just for me personally, is that when I have spoken up and said, hey, I'm experiencing something, can someone help me? Can someone hear me? It has been healing for me every single time. And now I use it as a tool, as a metric to check myself, to check other people, to watch my triggers. And I'm able to go to people that I feel safe with and AKA gossip with them. Let's go another layer deeper. Toxicity, abuse, manipulation, betrayal, and trauma thrives off of eating the fuel that we are afraid to gossip. Because if you are to gossip or tell your story, you are being difficult, you are causing problems. Maybe that makes you not a girl's girl. Really dangerous term right there. That's tricky. And there's a lot of gender coding in this as well. But that's my hot take, is that the term and the concept and the shame surrounding gossip is an insidious tool of the patriarchy that stops us from telling our stories, specifically between women. And let me circle back again and say, this does not mean hateful speech between women about women. This does not mean we should condone judgment. This does not mean that it's okay to yap about someone else's personal business or their trauma behind their backs. I think that women and people are intelligent enough to know the difference. And if you know the difference between telling your story and telling your experience and sharing life with the people around you and what you're experiencing, if you know the difference between that and damaging speech, congratulations, like, you're smart. But calling it all gossip, it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. I had so many experiences as a young person that I should have been speaking to someone about. But I didn't, because I didn't want to be a gossip. Or I didn't because I didn't want to be difficult. Or I didn't because I didn't want to cause problems. Or I didn't want them to think badly of me because of what I was saying. And let me add on to this. If you do choose to gossip, as the patriarchy calls it, what I call sharing your story, speaking up, sharing your life, sharing your inner world, sharing your experiences with people that feel safe to you, because it's very important, you will have a better experience. You will. But it takes a level of bravery. It is very scary to open up to someone else and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Could they screenshot what you're saying and use it against you? Yes. I've had that happen so many times. I cannot tell you how many times I have trusted someone, opened up about my story, opened up about my struggles, thinking that they were a safe person, thinking that they were someone that was going to care for my information, only to find out that I was gravely mistaken and that they used my information and my experience against me. Is that a possibility when you're opening up to someone else? Absolutely. Yes, it is. And so the work in there is to really find out who is safe, who is going to take care of your information, who is on the same page with you. And I'm still really learning how to do that. I've had a long journey of learning who was safe and who was not safe. But I think as women, the only way you find that out, unfortunately, is a degree of trial and error. And what aligns for you personally, because what works for me is not going to work for everyone else. And people have different standards. My standard of friendship and who I allow in my life has changed so drastically in a very short amount of time. I would say for me personally, between the ages of 27 and 33, I'm 33 now, I feel like a newborn baby when it comes to these types of things that I'm talking about. I experienced a massive, dramatic shift in how I relate to the world, how I perceive people, how I relate to people, what my standards are. And I'm grateful for those changes, but it was extremely difficult and extremely painful and extremely traumatic. And I've done a lot of work trying to figure out why that was so difficult for me. I know that there's an element in there that has a lot to do with neurodivergence because I often find myself in relationships and in situations where I feel like everyone else got a manual and I didn't. I feel like a lot of times I will do a postmortem conversation with a friend. Shout out to my friends who have listened to me talk about these things, is trying to figure life out, trying to figure relationships out. And they've been like, how did you not catch that? Or how did you not? And I know that it's some cocktail between neurodivergence and trauma. I know that it's in there and I'm trying really hard to find it because what I've learned through many traumatic experiences with relationships, friends, people I've dated, employees, employers, all those different stratospheres of relationships that one experiences in life and the difficulties that come through it. One thing that I've learned through all those stratospheres of relationships and so much damage that has occurred in my life is that at the end of the day, when the dust has settled, the work is about not finding out why they did what they did to me, but the work is finding out why I allowed them to do that to me. How did it get to that point? And I think that's that next step. I think everyone experiences trauma in relationships, friendships, any type of stratosphere of relationship, but I think you have a choice to stop at they did that to me and I'm upset with them or they're bad because they did that to me. Then you have another tier where you can say, why did they do that? What motivated them to do that? And then there's another tier of, why did I allow? Why did I let that in? And if you're brave enough and honest enough to get through those tiers and you can get through to why did I allow, that's your work right there. Because if you can find out why did I allow XYZ in, you can watch out for it in the future. And that is how you alchemize bad experiences into wisdom. And I'm still very much doing that work. I am very much in the middle of doing that work. And shout out to my friends and therapists and people that have helped me along the way to sort that out because I have made a lot of mistakes. And I haven't made mistakes based out of malice. I've made mistakes out of being a damaged person that didn't know my boundaries. But I can watch my progression, like I mentioned earlier, from like 27 to 33, which is such a critical time of life. Oh my gosh. And I can see the difference. I can see the movement of me learning boundaries and learning who I was and learning what I wouldn't tolerate. And the truth is that the world did not change. The people I was interacting with did not change. I'm the one that changed. I changed. I implemented a change. I learned that from my therapist when going through a lot of trauma and strife with my family and realizing that I come from a toxic family system, a dysfunctional family, broken family system in a lot of ways. And wanting so much the people in that system to change and not understanding their reactions to me and me changing, when really the system itself had stayed the same. I was the one who changed, and they're simply reacting to my change. Does that make sense? I was altering their reality, as if everyone had agreed upon a game in a dysfunctional system. Everyone had agreed upon the rules and all that stuff. I decided to break the rules. I decided to change. And I can't control how the members that are still in that game feel about that and how they're going to react to that. It all has to do with bringing the responsibility back over to your side of the street, which is really difficult to do when you are a woman because we are all about selflessness and considering others and making others comfortable. So when you have to take that next rung of responsibility for yourself and your own life experiences and how have I let myself get into these situations, oddly enough, even though that's a healing journey, it feels very selfish. And a lot of women reject what comes with that healing journey because it feels selfish. That's how strong the programming is, that we are unwilling to even care for ourselves through traumatic experiences because that's not caring for others. And that's selfish. And the worst thing that can happen if you're a woman is to be selfish or narcissistic or a bitch. That's the worst that you could be. And I think a true mark of like wisdom, when I meet a woman who has a reputation for being a biatch, I'm curious about that woman. Because I know that woman, obviously, if it's born out of lack of self-awareness and you're just ripping through life being awful, that's a different scenario. But if you are someone who has had a trajectory, you have gone through a vectored growth from being a doormat to caring for yourself and no longer self-abandoning, and that has earned you the label of being a bitch, I say slap that sucker on and wear it with pride because you earned that shit. But it's so anti our programming. It's so anti our programming, and it's so hard to drop that programming. I fall into it all the time. I love the quote that I saw that was like, I'm not being mean to you. I'm not being harsh to you. I'm not being difficult to you. I'm just not actively making you comfortable. And I think as women, we do that in such a default mode. We do that so automatically and so easily of making other people comfortable. We don't even know we're doing it half the time. Oh, but let me tell you, if you stop making people actively comfortable, if you stop actively making people comfortable that you have made comfortable for a long time and you take that gift away from them, oh, sister, they get mad. Oh, they do not like that. So that's a very interesting shift to experience, and I have experienced it firsthand in spades, and I have so much to say about it.